So what we're going to start today is our actual building of our dragsters. All right, and we started on Friday by watching that Junkyard Wars video where they designed dragsters and raced them. And what we're doing today is we are going to actually start building ours. Now the first step is designing the chassis. And the chassis is this structural frame of the car that is actually going to support all the other components of the car. So the body gets attached to it, the wheels, axles, the guide fin, the engine tube, you can see all that in there. And traditionally, we've built this in a bunch of different ways, but we are going to use, this time, our laser cutter to cut out your pieces. All right, so we're going to go back and grab it, just like we did before, and we're gonna draw it out and grab it, and we're going to cut this chassis. All right, now for today, we need to start by doing the rough draft of our chassis. Excuse me. We need to do the rough draft of our chassis. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us, if you look at one I did last period, it's going to give us a nice rough draft that we can then take this and put it into the computer so that when we laser cut it, here is this one that we just did on the laser cutter. All right, you can see this is basically exactly what I had planned on my rough draft, and this is going to give us a really nice strong base for our car. All right, so we are building the main structural component of our vehicle. Now, to do this, before we do anything else, you need to go on the internet and do a little bit of research on your Chromebooks about what type of car you want to build. And it's really totally up to you. But I printed out just some sample drawings so you can see the difference here. Does anybody know what kind of car this is? VW Bug, right? And here's a Scion FRS, and I'm actually going to do this car because I think it's cool, and I drive it in real life. So I'm going to see if I can make a mini dragster of this car. But you'll see they have, both of these cars have different shapes, right? They're both shaped differently. So the shape of your car is going to determine your chassis. All right? So this one, I might have the front angled in a little more like this, right? And then I'll bring it back, and then I might angle the back in, because the chassis should fit entirely under the car, right? On this one, I might draw my chassis out like this, and then maybe I'll bring it over, and maybe I'll even put a little bump out here for the front of it. Okay? But that all is going to have an effect on your final car, all right? So if you design your chassis with the wrong proportions or the wrong size, it'd be really hard to design the chassis for this and then make the body like this and get this to fit on that chassis, right? Because they're not the same proportions, they're not the same size. So you need to do some research and you need to think of what type of car you want to build. All right? Now on our design sheet, we are going to get this design sheet, and if you look at this sheet, okay, there are numbers across the top, numbers across the bottom. It goes from A to I this way, A to I from the bottom, and then J, there's a solid line right down the middle. We are going to design on this and basically play connect the dots to make our chassis. Now this line down the middle, if you remember back to bridges, how we wanted our bridges to be symmetrical this way, on a car, the left side and the passenger side and the driver's side of a car are symmetrical, right? So we want our car to be symmetrical this way. So we can use this whole thing to make our car symmetrical. So what I'm going to do, I am going to kind of keep this off to the side, and maybe I'll even cut it out so I can keep it on camera here. So I am going to start by just doing my outside border of my chassis. I'm going to start just with that. All right. Now, this size is the maximum size your chassis can be. That is the maximum size. It can be smaller than that. It can be any shape. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. Okay, it could be triangular. It can be a skinny rectangle, long rectangle, short and fat rectangle. That's totally up to you. That's going to totally depend what kind of car you pick. But it has to be symmetrical, and it has to stay inside of that. So I am just going to start, and you're going to do this part in pencil. I'm just going to start by drawing this front support right here. So this is going to be the front of my car. This is the back of my car. And I'm going to just draw using a ruler. I think I'm going to start on D, 2D, and I'm going to go to 2D on this side. And then I'm just going to draw in this line with a pencil. So I'm just playing connect the dots, right? And then we have this angle that comes back. So I think I'm going to angle it back to maybe about here, because I don't want it to be the full width. I'm going to make it a little skinnier. So I'm going to do this, right? So now that was 4A. So then I can go down here to 4A. Make a dot there. And we're making this thing, see how that's keeping everything perfectly symmetrical? So then this is actually just kind of a straight line back. So now I'm going to kind of try to figure out about how long I want my car to be. So I'm going to go to maybe like about here to 41. Yeah, I'm going to go to 41. So A41, and I'm going to connect this like this, and then I'm going to come down to the bottom, A41. I'm going to connect this like this, all right, so now we kind of have that shape. I like that. And then I'm going to do an angle back like this so that I could squeeze this under my back bumper. Because when I start rounding my body off and shaping my foam body, you don't want the chassis sticking out underneath it. When you look at a real car, you don't see the chassis sticking out of the real car, right? Or on our truck, when you look at our truck, you don't see the chassis sticking out. It's all underneath. So I'm going to make this go back like this, and that is D44. Then I'm going to go to D, which is this line here, 44. Now, it's okay. It's not great. I think this line should be kind of back a little more like that. But we're going to go with it and see what happens. We'll just rock and roll with it and see how it goes. All right? Now, if I just cut out a rectangle like that, that's not going to be a very strong chassis. If you look at this chassis, there's all kinds of supports in it. If I just had the outside rectangle, that thing's going to twist and bend, and it's not going to be strong at all. So we'll go back, and then we'll just add in some supports. So maybe I'll support this back bumper section. And the front bumper section. And if you remember back to bridges, quadrilaterals are weak shapes. We want to make triangles as many times as we can. So I had a quadrilateral. I can split that up into that one quadrilateral. I split into 3 triangles, so that's going to be a lot stronger. And you notice I put the center right on this line of symmetry. I'm going to do the same thing back here. All right, that looks good. And I'm just going to go simple. I'm going to go kind of near the middle. I'm going to go kind of near the middle, and I'm just going to draw 2 X's like this. All right, and I think that is the shape I'm going to go with for my chassis. All right? Now, the last thing you're going to do is once you are happy with your shape in pencil, okay? Because obviously the pencil line is much thinner than the actual line of the wood, right? Once you're happy with your shape in pencil, we are going to give you a marker, and you're going to go back over it in a black marker, and it's important that it's black, all right? It's very important that it's black because we're going to mark some other things on here with some different colors. So you're just going to go back over it, and it's just going to make the lines a little bit thicker and give you a better idea of how your chassis is going to look when we actually cut it out. So you can see this Sharpie line. This slightly worn Sharpie gives you a little fatter line. And you can see that gives us a more accurate idea. So if you do this, like let's say I do this, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh man, that is like a lot of room, a lot of space between some of those supports. Okay, at this step, before we start designing it on the computer and cutting it out, once you do this, maybe you'll see an area and you'll go, man, I really want to put some, I think I should put some extra support in there. Okay, like there's a lot of room in there that's not supported. So maybe at that point, you go back and you go, oh, okay, I want to put a support in like this, and then that is on D, so go up here to D. I want to put a support in like that, and then maybe just make this whole thing a little more rigid, make it a little more sturdy. Okay, that's the point of doing a rough draft, so that you can go back and change it around before you move through in the process. All right? So step 1, find some kind of generic car, or it could be a very specific car shape you want to do. Step 2, figure out the border shape for your chassis. Step 3, add your supports in. And in the very last step, you're going to go over it with a black marker so that you get those thicker lines, so you get a better idea of what it's going to look like when we actually cut it out. All right?